Car Guy Channel. The Car Guy Channel. My name is Mike Hennessy. This show is all about cars and all four car guys. Get yourself a cold beer. Get yourself a cold beer, guys, because our show is... We are smoking! I'm Mike Hennessy, and you're watching the Car Guy Channel. I have an auto repair shop. I've been in the business for over 30 years. You name it, we got it, we built it, we've done it, we do it. We love this car stuff, and I hope you guys do too. We're gonna have a lot of fun, got a lot of stuff cooking, so just stay tuned. Welcome to the Car Guy Channel. I say this all the time. We got a fantastic show. It covers cars. Yep, the Car Guy Channel. That's what we do, is cover cars. I love this stuff. I'm telling you, I never get tired of it. I really enjoy it, and I'm hoping you real car buffs really do too, just as much as I do. We got kind of an unusual car because of how we bought it and what we did. And through the year of 2015, we've covered all sorts of cars. Bought a lot, but we do buy a lot of cars. We restore a lot of cars. We bought a car for a client, and I got to show you this early 1955 190 SL Mercedes-Benz. I'm telling you, it was fun to build it, and it was challenging to build it, and a little expensive too. Obviously, you know, when it comes into an early breed European car, they are difficult to do, and they can be rather expensive to do. So there's a couple things I don't want you to do. Don't touch any of these cars out there. Don't touch that dial. Sit down, get yourself a cold one, because you're going to see some pretty cool stuff, and I might take you a walk through my warehouse. What I got here today is a 1955 Mercedes-Benz 190 SL. And kind of the most interesting thing about this, we're going to show you pictures when we got this car coming off a car transporter. This car here was bought in back east. And buy some of these crazy interesting cars on eBay and all over, that is half the thrill. No, it's not half the thrill. It is the full thrill. It's the hunt and the find of these. And to find a 55, now the reason why I'm saying in 1955, Mercedes-Benz started making these cars in 1955 to all the way to 1963. There was an 8-year run of these, and it's called the 190 SL. They didn't have a big motor. They had a stick shift transmission. They had about 104 horsepower and top speed. Believe it or not, top speed on a small car like this, it's a luxury roadster. The Mercedes-Benz Luxury Roadster 190 top speed was 106 miles an hour, and that was wind pushing it in the back. So it's a real small four-cylinder car, which we'll go over the motor and stuff in the show further along. But I'm telling you, this was a find that was absolutely spectacular. We called the guy up, a lot of emails exchanged back and forth, called a client that was interested in this particular car because he likes these. 55 is the very first year, and this is a very early production car. In the Mercedes-Benz world, and of course with the European market, it gives the car kind of a totally different value. And get the value of something like this, these are off the chart. The big trick is finding certain cars for certain clients. The client that wanted this car here is going to be overseas. This is going to go to a museum over in China. And the find of the car was really what they wanted, was a Mercedes-Benz 190 SL. Actually finding the car, getting it purchased, get the deal kind of done, and you're going to see this car came in on a transporter. This car, the unload, we should actually had a forklift because the front end didn't steer. Most of the steering parts were not there, unavailable, broken, lost, whatever it may be. A lot of parts were missing on this car. This was probably one of our most challenging cars that we ever attempted to do to get this thing running. You will see all the parts laid out on the floor. You'll see all the bits and pieces that we had going on. I'm telling you, it was really a spectacular thing to do, being a mechanic at heart and really searching for these parts, putting ourselves to the challenge, and we put fatality to the challenge on this car. You're going to see all the parts laid all over the whole parking lot that we have here, and try to spread out and do some sort of inventory of what we had, let alone having the parts, but are the parts that you have, are they good parts? That's the whole rule itself. Mercedes-Benz on these particular cars, a lot of them parts are out there and they are available. But I'm going to say one thing. You guys out there that buy parts for your cars, you got to go knock on the door and say, hey honey, I got to buy a part for the car. If you have to get some for one of these here, you better be aware that you're going to be writing some serious checks. We were kind of surprised ourselves on some of the parts for the car. The air cleaner in the car is missing. We did locate one over actually back in New York. And the part cost for this car, air cleaner, is a lot of money. We don't get into cost on the show and a lot of parts, but it was a lot of money. And the little individual motor parts were pretty expensive also. And there was a hood clasp. All these little things kind of added up. But my client wanted this. We ordered all new wheel cylinders, all brakes, master cylinder, brake lines. We did so much to this car here all the way around. I think it came out really spectacular. But let's go ahead and show you under the hood, because that's where this is all about. And then I want to talk about that motor. You will see the motor is actually on a crate when this thing here was unloaded off the transporter. Now, some of the key parts about doing a car like this, and one of the best tools out there in the world, is our computers. Computer can help me find not really the parts, but the layout and what goes on to get to the right parts supplier. We use one pretty good called SL Parts back east, and I thought they were absolutely spectacular in the digital layout of all the individual parts needed, and they had pretty much everything we needed to get for the car. If you're willing to pay for it, you're able to get it. You're going to see this engine on a stand the way we got it. Missing parts, some broken parts, and we had to disassemble it to go ahead and rebuild this engine and put it back together so this is a good runner. These little tiny 4 cylinders, like I said earlier, they're really about 104 horsepower, 4-cylinder motor, and it's a single overhead cam, chain driven. Now you got to think back in 1955, you know, overhead cam parts, Mercedes-Benz really was ahead of its time on a lot of cars. A lot of European cars really were with overhead cams. Not too many American cars. Matter of fact, I'm going to say too many. No American cars really ran and sold one actually to the open market like the Europeans do. And this thing here had 2 Solex side draft carburetors. These carburetors came to us. You'll see in the pictures all apart, and I'm telling you, there was just really kind of a mess to be able to put them together to get schematics to do this. My client was really, really good about it. We called him many times, had many conversations of the work and the effort it's going to take to go ahead and get it run. And you can tell by looking at it, we did a lot of detail on the engine with the wires and all the little pieces to put this thing here together to make this here a driver. That's why I put this on the show, because it's such a unique build for a lot of you guys out there. You look at this and go, geez, that's a tough build. Not like doing you know, a Mustang, which you pick up the phone and almost all the parts available. This is not that way at all. But you can check this here out. We're waiting for an air cleaner that's coming in, but we want to get it on the show. Air cleaner comes all the way from over there, tucks into here. We got some detail work that's underneath here. There's other things more you can do, but we wanted to make this thing here a driver before we went to the next step. We went into the transmission, and we went ahead and just replaced a couple seals. We put a new clutch. We did the surface the flywheel, and a lot of stuff was actually fairly simple, believe it or not. And again, like I was talking about the parts earlier, even though they were hard to get, after we got them, everything fit really, really good. There were a lot of items that we had to have custom made and actually still to look at the same Mercedes way they did it back in the early 50s. But this gas line here is the correct material, the correct color. They have the blue in there with the gray. And this is actually a kind of a semi-steel line that's underneath here to give this particular curve with this T here on the ends. And you can take a look at the side draft carburetors here, these Solexes. They're a very complicated carburetor. And with the choke systems, the vacuum controlled choke systems, you have to check everything. All the nuts and all the bolts are all brass that hold this together. So the brass ones, believe it or not, you have to re-tap and re-dye almost all of them to build these carburetors. We didn't really build them as brand new. We did the best we really could for what we had to work with, and I think it came out really pretty good. A few little parts we had to pick up. Some parts we decided to put on the lathe and make them, and that really made it work for us for speed and efficiency to keep this job going. And we don't want to, you know, when you're doing a restoration on a project on a car, you hate to have downtime. But we're going to, next step is now, since the car ran and drove pretty good, we actually cleaned and waxed and did this car, cleaned it with Clorox, cleaned it actually with steel wool, and then repolished it just to see how bad that paint really was, to find out really what we had. The convertible top was covered in so much dirt. We scrubbed the top, and they put a new one on from the people that we purchased the car from as they were having it in their collection before they were going to sell the car. I think the top cleaned out really nice. Now, for a concourse car, it might be a little on the edgy side on some areas, but we wanted to clean this car up to see really what we had. And kind of some of the surprising things, the interior of the car really was not as bad as I originally thought there was. The glass on the doors rolled up really pretty good. We already know it's going to need rubber and items like that. But the dashboard in the car, we scrubbed and cleaned, and you have no idea that it would really clean up that nice. Check it out. And when you see the interior in the car, and the steering wheel does not have a crack in it. So like I mentioned earlier about the avenue we're going to go on to, we cleaned this car here up. Now we kind of drove it. We know what this car here is all about, and we know how to attack it. Obviously, the motor does need to come back out. You could probably drop the rear end out for detail only if that's what you needed to do, and go those avenues. That's what I mean, the type of restoration and where you want to spend your money. The money that's going to be spent in this car here, my recommendations are obviously the carpets. Now, You guys will know this statement because one man's loss is one man's gain. So the person who started this restoration project many years ago, before actually we purchased it, he did buy carpets for the car. He did buy a handful of things, but because of his finances or he lost interest in the project, they're called someday cars. Not Sunday cars, but someday. He had delusions of grandeur. He's going to build this car someday and put this car here back on the road. It never happened. So some of the carpets and some of the brand new parts, like the carpets, did kind of go kind of crappy. So we're going to be replacing carpets and things in the car, paint, and a lot of items, re-chrome some pieces, door handles, and so on. So we kind of got a pretty good idea about what this car here is going to go together on. So I thought I'd show you a little bit about a 1955 190 SL Mercedes luxury roadster.
So what you got here, this is an alternator inside of a generator body. So you get your old school rat rods or hot rods that came with the generator. The guys want to retain that original look, but the generators just don't perform like an alternator does. So they pack that thing full of an alternator and it's good to go.
So this right here, that even like 64 thing, we'll get Mark about the half thing. He's on the half thing today. But 64 and a half Mustangs were Ford products. From 65 on down ran generators.
Exactly.
So these right here are custom built. These are kind of cool, guys. This is kind of neat. I don't know if you guys know these things are out there. So hold this thing here. Then we'll do it one more time here.
You play.
We got right back here, and you got the diode trio in the background right there. This right here is probably the heat sink plate. Got the diode trio back here. It is now. Is this an internal regulator?
Yes, it is.
Oh, so it's a one wire.
You got a one wire. You plug it and go.
It's pretty darn cool. One wire generator. Excellent. Good job. Hey, you want to host the show? He can host the show next. We'll get Mark to host the show next time, and just go ahead and say whatever you want to say. It's all yours.
We'll be back with the Car Guy Channel just before you know it.
Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. Yes, that'll be the day when you make me cry. You say you're gonna leave. You know it's a lie, 'cause that'll be the day. Hey, hey, when I die, well, you give me all your love.
Just to show you kind of a fun car. I mean, this is a fun car. It has a kind of a real neat history. Came into our shop to go ahead and basically get roadworthy back again. It's been sitting inside storage for over 7 years. And it's just really a cool 1964 Nova. And the car was built many years ago by this lady's brother. And he's passed on and left the car with her. And there's some pretty neat stories about it. And I really think he did some great work. So you're talking about retro mods done many, many years ago. Pulling this thing out of the mothballs was really kind of neat. It had some pretty neat pinstriping. And actually did, a Ford rear end in the back of the car. And a lot of stuff that he's done. There's air shocks in the back. And there's a little kind of a mistake that someone did, probably the way the kit was designed back then. I'm going to take you to the front of the car and show you how we fixed it. They always say there's a reason for everything. Probably back then earlier, the upper spindles are right here. Putting a set of disc brakes on cars, that turned out to be a pretty big deal coming into the 90s. Of course, putting disc brakes on some of the older cars. People put front clips and all sorts of great things on these cars. Now, a Nova is a light car. The guy went ahead and shoehorned a Chevy 350 in here, and it absolutely sounds fantastic. So we're making this car here roadworthy. You might see it on one of our episodes. But the caliper on the front of the car on the spindle had the spindle from the right side, so the caliper was up here in the front. Some people thought there was a better form of stopping. It really doesn't change it at the end of the day at all. It works just fine back here. The problem that we ran into was when we had the car up in the air, that the brake hose itself was so tight from being pretty much set up here in the front, it would have pulled it out. If that car would hit a bump, went up in the air or something pretty fast, pretty hard, it would have just broke the brake line. So our tech fatality seemed to catch the problem, turned it around, and made it so this car here is safe. So when you get these cars back on the road, you're pulling them out of the garage, trying to get these things back going, bring them to your shop, or if you're doing it at home, making the car safe is really what it's all about. Making the car roadworthy, changing the fluids, changing the oils, and that's what we're doing on this. I want to take under the hood and kind of show you what was done pretty much about 20-something years ago. The car has a better than average white paint job on it. I'm really surprised it's held up this long. I have a feeling this right here is a base coat car, base coat clear, which means has a base color of white cleared over. I think he did a really a good job. I'm kind of impressed on that. And attention to detail, you can see all the bolts that are bolted the fender on all the way down the whole line. These are either chrome plated, which I think they are, which we haven't dug in that much, or it's a stainless steel bolt and it's polished. That shows that he took a little bit of time and a little bit of effort putting this car together. We haven't cleaned none of this up. You're seeing this car exactly how we got it in to go ahead and get it fixed up for to put on the road. We'll clean all this up in here. But even back then, now the shock towers, he had some chrome-plated towers on there. We took the master cylinder off because the system is pretty much, you know, the brake system from sitting around that long. That's the first thing you guys got to check. Rack these things up, pull the wheels, check the wheel cylinders, take them apart, clean them out. If you don't think they're leaking, clean out the old fluid and put in some good 3-dot brake fluid in the system. But you know, here are the old Holley carburetors. They have a cork gasket seal, and I was really surprised that it didn't leak. That doesn't mean it's not going to leak. So our Tech Vitaly went ahead and put the oils and they put the gas in the car. We're going to still let this thing here run to make sure that's going to be safe, so you don't have a carburetor that's leaking any gas. Leaking gas, of course, we all know that's a problem, and you can't have that type of problem in the car. But we're going over and see a lot of the old school stuff that was done. You can tell in its day, this car here was probably a very, very, very cool Nova. And things I could really tell, when these right here are chrome plated, the hinges have been painted on the car with the chrome nuts to go ahead and hold it together. And you got then when they painted it, they did a real nice job on that top cowl. Basically, just looks really clean. So I can really tell that they took pride in this car. It took a lot of time to put this thing here together, and they did a lot of good work. When it comes to us to go ahead and get roadworthy and get back on the road, I don't know, it's like you're working on a little bit of a time machine, especially somebody from the family. And she's just a great gal, and it was a pleasure to talk to her, meet with her, and she had that look in her eye like, let's get this car on the road, and she's proud to get it on the road. And we're kind of proud to go ahead and do it also. It's one of our fun projects. Hey, let's take a look inside. I want to show you inside how the old school did. You can see all the new rubber all the way down here has been installed on it. Nice, crisp, clean door jambs and nice white. You got the rubbers on the bottom and the top. They look excellent. Then you kind of reach into the inside the car, and then you can see a lot of stuff inside has been done. It has a tilt steering column. It has a tack on the center of the steering column, and the dash is blacked out, and that's kind of the way, basically the way we did cars really quite a few years ago. I think the car was tastefully and well done, and I think well done is a pretty big word to use. And quality level of the paint, I think he did a great job. And the seats look extremely comfortable. It looks like maybe got it from an auto wrecker or somebody that sold seats. They were designed with a headrest because we can see the little slots in there that are not there. But when we finished putting together this car, I think it's a pretty cool little street rod. Many of you guys that know me or been to my shop or know my taste and style, I love trucks. My good buddy calls me on the phone and says, Mike, I got a truck. I got to buy it. It's exactly what I want. We're talking on the phone. I'm getting about excited he is, and he's the one writing the check. I actually think he got a heck of a buy. Now, I hate to show you this dirty, but it's one of our winter projects. So when he bought it, he knew just what he wanted. He wanted this particular year, this particular color, and this truck here had a full frame-off restoration. But he was willing to buy it the way it was, and I liked it the way it was. No power steering, it has a V8, no power brakes, just original stock, good old-fashioned, very, very well done Chevrolet half-ton step-side pickup truck. And you can tell how clean this thing here is with the small caps on it and the little beauty rings on the tires, black walls, the chrome's excellent. The color's kind of a deep oxblood color, white top, beautiful chrome all the way around, door handles. Everything on it is new and under the hood's new. But it doesn't have an automatic, and it does not have power steering, and it does not have power brakes. My client says, I want to make this car here drivable, and this is what I want. So I encourage all you guys, that what turns into a car that's a driver. I don't think it kills it at all. I think it enhances this car. It had the 4-speed granny transmission. No one's going to use that first gear here in the Bay Area. Second and third and fourth, you can't really hit the freeway that much. We're putting an automatic transmission in it. We're not cutting anything up. We're doing this thing kind of saving all the bits and pieces in the box, saving aside. It'll probably sit in the garage for 25 years. You never know how that goes. But again, we all talk about that stuff. But we put power brakes in it, put in power steering, and we put an automatic transmission. We're going to have this out on the show, but I thought I'd show you a little bit about it and how clean this is. And we're turning this into a good driver for my good buddy JB. We've had great comments from you people who've been watching the show because we've done kind of some segments of what's going on to the shop. And I usually didn't do really a lot of that at all, but you know, I'm telling you, it's a real neat piece for the show. And I want to show you some cars that we got in queue. And what means in queue is how many cars are in line for ready for the restoration. We have about 4 cars in queue. We went ahead and finished the 7-liter. That was for Roger for last year, the black 7-liter. And actually somebody threw a basketball, hit the roof of the car. We're taking care of the roof on that car as we speak, and it's being done today. You'll see Vitaly while he sat in on that car. But this right here is the next project we're going to be showing you. We're going tubular suspension in the front. We're going a 700R transmission. We're doing a high-performance Chevy 350 motor. We're going to be painting this car, turning this into a full, complete custom. And my customer is a great guy. And the reason I love this guy, he says he wants it to be one of the nicest Nomads in the Bay Area. We're going to try to turn it into one of the neatest cars. You're seeing a car that's in queue that we're actually starting on in 2 weeks to get it completely disassembled. And we're going to show you this car right here from start to finish, how we're doing this car and how the progress is going on. This will go pretty quick. There's a couple other cars inside the shop I'm going to show you that are in queue and in running, and we got to get these things done. Sometimes with this cold weather and with warm weather, you got to make some concessions what to do. This car right here, some of the things that slowed us down really is the drying time for some of the putties and some of the primers and some of the fillers and sealers that you use before it goes to paint. This is going to be getting all set up to go to the primer, not the primer booth, but to the spray booth. We like to get most of our primers and all our fillers and stuff where all the sanding gets done. Kind of a mess area. We made this area here kind of very well lit so we can see all the imperfections in the paint and all the imperfections that's going to have to go on. But we got this car here, what we call stage of color. When I say I put a car into color, it's usually a sealer or into primer, so it's all one particular piece. Now, to get the car to look like this has taken hours, but just to show all the work, you see how straight this car here is. You're seeing how everything is coming together on all the lines on the doors. And that's the challenge when you're doing something like this, to do it right. And it's nice to have some clients that really want to do it right. I think this car here is coming out really, really nice. See some of these right here, just some of the polishes and stuff that we've used and whatnot after cleanup. We found some areas that need a little bit of attention because this over here is kind of high. So we don't need any more putties in this car. We need to use actually the good quality primer. We're using a feather fill. We feather fill this whole complete side of the car. Getting this done, we're going to start hitting on the roof on it, just to kind of show you guys a little bit about what we're doing in this project and how it's going. And this right here is going to be on display here pretty soon, which you see really looks pretty rough, but you'll be really surprised how fast it goes together. You really will. In the stage of the priming and all the sealers we're putting on the car, we're actually painting the steering column. So we got to get the steering column all pretty much prime, even though we ordered it from I Did It. We do want to do it to color match the car. And these are some custom pieces that we made for the actual back door. Now, we wanted to go ahead for the gas door, and this is a 64 Falcon, and so the gas door is on the outside of the car. Well, Dennis had a pretty good idea about putting it on the inside. We tried different ideas and concept. Jared looked at me and said, hey, why don't we put a door in the door? Kind of thought about it, and really wasn't a bad idea. So we custom made this piece in the opening. This is really thick sheet metal. We went ahead and made this. This is the door that's going to bolt on here and have a nice chrome lock on it. Opens up. Gas filler will be in there. Kind of a pretty clever idea, and it's going to look nice. This is going to be inside the bed of the truck. So the outside is all completely shaved off, and you would never know there was a gas cap ever on the outside of this truck. Very cool. Good idea. Being an auto dealer here in California takes a lot of work. There's a lot to it, all sorts of new regulations, stuff that we need to follow, and there's really a lot of good stuff. We have to check VINs on every car that we sell and buy, and that's actually a pretty good thing. It protects all of us out there. I'm still out there looking for cars. I look every day, get phone calls, emails. Don't be afraid to shoot me an email on a car if it's for sale, if it's a project, and that's where this car here came from. I kind of want to talk about it a little bit because it's a really fascinating car. It turned out to be a 1967 Ford Mustang, and we turned it into a 350 California Special convertible. V8, automatic, really a fun driver, really kind of a neat car with the Shelby Cobra wheels on it. I think look absolutely spectacular. It's pretty neat. Now, part of the reason I was showing you this car here because it goes into storage. We finished this car here not too long ago, and it's time to go in storage for the winter. We're a little bit late. We're getting kind of ready. So while you're here at the shop today, seeing a lot of these cars, this right here goes into storage. And the way to store cars, guys, you know, gasoline shelf life. Even Jay Leno did a little spot on one talking about shelf life of gasoline. We used to go ahead and keep a lot of gas in our cars. That doesn't work anymore. There's products that stay-ball. There's all sorts of things you can put in your gas. I'm not saying they don't work or they do work. I'm just kind of the old school way of saying just keep a little bit of gas in that gas tank, and I think you're going to be better off by storing the car. It's going to last a certain length of time. Gas shelf life to me is about 6 months. Anything longer than that, always have a little bit, and you mix other gas in it, and you're going to know. When you got a car that has a lot of gas, that's old gas, you can smell it in the air. They call it a lacquer smell. Nowadays, it's more of a completely different type of odor, but it is really completely different, and you will know it immediately that has an odd smell. Same stuff that's sitting around for your lawnmower and stuff. So cars like this is going to go back into storage. We always had this car here covered, needs to go back into indoors, has a cloth top, special hood, and of course the California special scoops on the side. Now, storing cars is kind of a neat thing out there, and I think when you guys learn how to do it right, the reason why they jack up cars, they say my car's been on blocks and whatnot, it's because of the pressure on the tires. If the tires don't have any weight on them, tires will really last a fairly long time. Just kind of let the air out of it so the tire's not always ballooning up all the time, and you might be okay. Rubber itself does wear out. It wears out for time. It's just the way it is, the way the product is, and they do wear out. So if you can block these up and keep the tires off the ground and keep about maybe a gallon of gas at the most in there, take the batteries out, put the batteries on a shelf somewhere. I think putting those little tenders on, they're not a bad idea at home if you kind of use the car off and on, but if you're going to have a car that's stored for a long period of time, take the batteries out, put them on a shelf. That's where fires, that's where problems happen. I'm trying to tell you that as a friend and a car owner and a car collector and a shop owner. Take the batteries out, put them on a bench, and you can probably put a small trickle charge, have an area where you got your batteries, so it's a safe area, plus for fumes and all the other stuff, and keep an eye on it. Don't monitor it. Just don't have them going all the time. But if you have a separate area for them, that's what I highly recommend. Those are some of my tips on storing some cars. I kind of like to tell you guys about these things, and once in a while a guy says that, asks me questions at the car shows, and they're simple answers, and they're good questions. But I got a phone call about a car that I have never owned. There was a car that was named Auto Union. A little bit of homework for you guys. Look up the word Auto Union. You think it was an Audi, but it's not an Audi. You think it was a BMW. Think of all sorts of things, but this car here is called an Auto Union. You're going to see at the back of the trunk, you'll actually see the 4 rings of the 4 companies that went in together to put this car here together. When this car here was done in the early 50s, some people claim that that's really where, T-Bird came up with a design to go on the back and put the fins on them. Now, that was kind of controversial because this car was strictly European, was never sent really to the States. There was no Auto Union dealers, to my knowledge, in the United States. They had to be all exported in when they came in. When I saw this car here come across my desk in the email, I said, I got to see it. I got to check it out. Went over and saw it. 3-cylinder, 2-cycle motor. We're going to get this on the show, but I was so excited because I got the car in, pulled it out of the warehouse, and can you get a quick minute? We're going to show you some things here in the warehouse, because that's kind of a little bit of our teaser. Sometimes I take some people through there on some tours, and I think Estelle's got a little bit of footage to show you about a handful of cars that I got. And then for the year coming up, I'm going to go ahead and be taking some out, and I'm going to sell some, trade some. I'm going to trade off my collection and make some changes and stuff. But when you see an Auto Union, I need the Auto Union in my collection. So I'm going to get rid of some of the Mustangs, some of the Tri-5 Chevys, and some of the other cars that I've had for many years. And I think it's time to just kind of re-car, kind of change all up. And I think it's a pretty neat part of life. When you're in the car world, this is what it's about. But seeing an early model, 1959 Auto Union, I think a pretty cool car and very unusual. I'm telling you, car guys, it's worth checking them out. It really is. I hope you enjoyed the show. A little bit of interesting things today going on, and the type of cars we're building at the shop. We seem to get a lot of talk about what's going on. People love to see different projects and whatnot. I had some couple calls about cars that people had sitting around, what's called barn finds. And we got a little bit of a barn find I think you got maybe a little bit of kick out of, and check it outside the warehouse. And I'm hoping you got a little thrill out of seeing some unusual cars, like the Auto Union, and of course the Mercedes-Benz, and seeing how we went on the project. There's all sorts of things going on, and we're building stuff all the time because that's what we do. You hear some things going on in the back, building carts for stuff, because this year here, coming in, you saw a couple of cars in queue. We got a lot of projects going on. God bless you. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Coming to my heart, darling, darling, we will never part. I love you, darling, so come go with me. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, I need you. Yes, I really need you. Please say you'll never leave me. No, say you'll never. No, you really never. You never give me a chance. Well, come, 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 come into my heart and tell me, darling, you will never part. I love you, darling, so come go with me.